It's my real pleasure to welcome the first set of finalists to present. This paper by Jidu, Lily Z, and Stefan Schroeder is called PIN Optimal Auction Vehicle Distribution System, Applying Price Forecasting, Elasticity Estimation, and Generic Algorithms to the Used Car Distribution System. So Stefan, sorry.
Thank you very much, John, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're truly honored to be here today to present to you our industry-leading solution for the optimal distribution of auction vehicles, or short ODAV. My name is Stefan Schroeder, and with me here today are Jay Du, our Director for Modeling and Scientific Programming, and Lily Xi, who is a member of our remarketing team. Before we start our presentation, let me ask you a quick question. If you had to sell tomorrow your car in the United States under one condition, that you had to maximize the profit, where would you sell it? Okay? That's essentially the question that ODAV answers every night, on average about 2,000 times by 6 o'clock in the morning for our clients who are car manufacturers and financial organizations, and who have entrusted us, J.D. Power, with their portfolio of about $8.5 billion. So with that said, let me get into the presentation, and we're going to cover 4 topics today. First of all, let's talk a little bit more about the remarketing process and the particular challenges. Jay will then show you how ODAV, the ODAV solution, has overcome and solved those challenges. And then we will show you briefly a client application and talk about some of the significant impacts that we have generated with our ODAV service. So let's get started with some of the remarketing process challenges and risks. So where do all these vehicles come from in the first place? Well, the biggest part comes from the retail market. 13 million vehicles were sold new retail in the United States last year, about 20% as lease vehicles. And when those vehicles come back, you as a customer have the first choice to buy the vehicle. If you don't want the vehicle, the dealer gets a chance to purchase the vehicle. And if the dealer is not interested in the vehicle, the manufacturer or the finance organization then takes the vehicle back to the auction. The other situation is where somebody is not able to make the payments anymore and the vehicle gets repossessed. And so between the vehicles that manufacturers and banks take back to the auction and the repossessions, last year 2.4 million vehicles came out of the fleet market. Now the other major source are fleet vehicles. And fleet sales fall into 2 categories. One are the so-called program vehicles. These are vehicles that the manufacturer actually takes back to the auction because he has given his customers a buyback guarantee. The biggest example, the best example, are the daily rental companies who basically offload every 6 to 9 months their vehicles back to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer takes them to the auction. The other big group are the risk vehicles. Those are the vehicles that the fleet sales that were sold to fleet customers and the fleet customers themselves have to take back to the auction. So between these 2 major groups, in 2006, you looked at an auction volume of 4.7 million vehicles. It's about $50 billion in revenue. So if you compare that to the total new vehicle sales of 16.5 million vehicles, you can see that there is a considerable amount of responsibility and risk here involved with selling both groups of vehicles. So what are some of the particular remarketing challenges that come now with selling these vehicles? Well, first of all, there are some significant differences in regional and seasonal supply and demand of these vehicles. And just to give you a couple examples, the Northeast is, for example, in America, a very heavy area in terms of leasing, but for some reason the demand for these off-lease vehicles is not very high. The other example is, for example, on the rental side, the Southeast, where because of a lot of the vacation spots, you have a very high supply of rental vehicles that come back, and they tend to come back, for example, heavily in the fall after the vacation season is over, but the market is nowhere near able to absorb that volume at that point in time. Second biggest challenge has to do with the pricing. If you were to go out in my example and ask 10 used car guys to give you a quote for your vehicle, I guarantee you you'd get 10 different quotes and you'd be still fighting over the price. Third, no two vehicles are alike. So even if you agreed on that one vehicle and put another one next to it, you'd disagree on the price again. And that, of course, has to do, for example, with the difference that have to do with the condition of the vehicle and the mileage of the vehicle, who everybody values differently. Fourth, a used car is a depreciating value. So unless you're willing to wait another 30, 40 years and hope that it turns into a classic car, in the short term, you will guarantee to have a drop in price and you will have a loss. Fifth, clients, of course, have individual business constraints. So in my example, there's probably good spots in America, but geographically, you don't want to ship vehicles, for example, from New York all the way to Los Angeles. Or clients, of course, want to make sure they have full truckloads before they send vehicles somewhere. You don't want to see a truck driving around with just one car on it. It's just too expensive. Sixth, you have local supply and demand dynamics. So as we take vehicles out of one location and put them in another location, the price dynamic changes at the auction, and we have to balance that against the arbitrage amounts. And then, of course, cycle time. So imagine every night 2,000 vehicles. You don't sell them today, you have 4,000 tomorrow, and so on. And combined with the depreciation, the problem just compounds itself every night. So those are some of the challenges that our clients have to deal with. Now, what are some of the financial implications if they manage that process ineffectively and don't do a good job in the distribution? Well, first of all, it has three major implications. The first one is it affects past sales, and that is through residual values. If you've leased a vehicle, you would have found in your lease contract a residual value amount, and that is frankly the amount that the manufacturer expects to get for the vehicle when it comes off lease for him to sell at the auction. Would also be the price that you would have to pay for the vehicle. Now, if the actual auction price is lower than that residual vehicle, then the manufacturer or the bank incurs a loss and has to make up for that gap. Secondly, and through the same mechanism, it affects future sales because obviously those auction prices directionally become a very important input to setting future residual values. Now, as these auction prices get lower, expected future residuals get lower, and it makes it harder and harder for manufacturers to offer attractive leasing and financing for their vehicles. Or for you as a consumer who maybe financed the vehicle, you will have less equity in your vehicle that you can leverage when you maybe get to the point where the vehicle is paid off, you want to buy the next vehicle, and you're trying to sell your vehicle. And so the combined effect of both making up for past losses and potentially having to spend more incentive money to offer attractive leasing and financing on future sales can significantly impact then the present profitability for manufacturers and their ability to maybe spend money on other areas like product development and so forth. So just to give you a sense here for the magnitude that we're talking about, based on the market that the number we said earlier, if the auction prices last year would have only dropped on average by 1%, you would have looked at a loss of about $500 million in revenue for those manufacturers and banks that had to remarket those vehicles. So with that backdrop, we're going to run our first clip. We actually have some client testimonial. The person that we're going to hear about, one of our largest clients, Peter Grady. He's Director of Fleet Remarketing from Chrysler.
For Chrysler, remarketing to us means we take our fleet rental vehicles back from the various rental companies across the country, and then we sell them to our dealers through the auction system. The ODAV system provides us the opportunity to place those vehicles in a geographically optimal place, meaning we want to optimize our ability to get residuals and balance that against the distribution costs, transportation, and personnel costs that are associated with remarketing these vehicles. The challenges for Chrysler in remarketing 280,000 units every year is that we don't get them in a steady flow from the rental companies, nor do we get them spread out all over the country. Our concentration of rental has followed the population, primarily the vacation population, down in the southern and western United States, so that we get a very large concentration of all of our vehicles, but primarily our minivans and our mid-size sedans will land in a place like Florida, or they'll land in Southern California. And we know that that's the biggest challenge for us, because with that high concentration, the laws of supply and demand would tell us that we cannot possibly get the kind of pricing that we have put into our business plan.
I'll introduce you briefly about the PIN ODAV system, the solution we developed to answer the big challenges Pete and Stefan just talked about. In the center of this system is this objective function. We need to find a way to optimize this function to maximize the net profit by sending the right vehicles to the right place at right time. The net profit we mean is auction proceeds minus the asset carrying cost and shipping cost. The first term of this objective function is a forecast price. In the next 3 slides, I will discuss it more detail. The second one is the auction price adjustment. At auction, it's supply drive the price. Before the auction, dealer already know what kind of vehicle and how many vehicles will offered at the sale. If we have a lot of vehicles, actually more than normal sales VA bar, dealer wouldn't active bid to get what he wants. So this drives the auction price down. On the other hand, the active bidding will push the auction price up if we undersupply the auction. We use the elasticity coefficient epsilon to catch this phenomena, and the auction price adjustment is a feedback term to the objective function. It introduces a non-linearity to it. The shipping takes time, so do the activities before the auctions, like reconditioning and title work. The auction usually happens bi-weekly or monthly. So if we can distribute the vehicle smart enough, we can catch the auction quickly. Otherwise, we have to wait a period of time for next auction. Time means money for our clients because of depreciation, also because of cost of fund. So the asset carrying cost TA is the cost term in the objective function. It's a discontinuitive characteristic caused increase the complexity of the function. The last term is the shipping cost. It's usually defined as the shipping cost per truckload per route. Usually the truck takes 8 units. If we just send, which means we still have to pay the full truckload even if we just send 1 vehicle. So this kind of phenomena create this sawtooth-like effect in the objective function or numerous local optimas. So let's talk more about this first term in the objective function, which is price forecasting, short-term price forecasting. Here, short-term, we mean 4 weeks to 6 weeks. This is the time between we distribute the vehicles to the vehicle gets sold. There are a lot of factors impact the auction price. Stefan just talked about each cars are unique because of the make, model year, configurations, mileage, equipment levels, conditions. So we have to take this into account. Also, the local market has impact on the price. 4-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive, like a 4-wheel drive SUV sells very good in the north, but not as good in the south. So there could be $1,000 to $2,000 differences. And also, color is another one attribute shows the regionality. Generally speaking, light earth tone color is very popular right now. But in New York and New England area, black is the most popular color. We jokingly call it mafia effect. In The Godfather, probably everybody knows, all the cars driven by Corleone's family were black. And also the gasoline price index, new vehicle incentives, all general market has an impact on the auction price. But it's very difficult to capture it because the reporting delay. It usually takes 1 month for the gasoline price index reported, and 2 weeks for the new vehicle incentives. So I gave you an example. If we try to forecast 06 Grand Cherokee 4-wheel drive, what kind of independent variables we need to consider? So the key question to the short-term price forecasting is whether we can find a way to capture all these observable independent variables and also capture as much as possible the unobservable market dynamics. Our answer to this is nearest neighbor linear regression model. Here's the definition of linear regression, nearest neighbor. If a vehicle in the sales record has the same make, model year, drive type, body style, sold as the same auction in the recent sales as the vehicle to be distributed, we call it in the nearest neighbor. There are 3 advantages to use the nearest neighbor filter before we run the linear regression. First, it reduces the independent variables. All this make, model year, body style, and regionalities go to the intercept of the linear regression model. And also, combined with the daily sales history update, the model is very quick and responsive to the local market changes. And it's also increased efficiency because we use a smaller data set. The nearest neighbor really gave us a way to find the right balance between the market dynamics and long-term trend. So at the beginning of the development, we were excited because we have a huge data set, 2 years of sales history for all the auctions. So we play around with different models. One model we built is include everything, volumes, everything, and we find out the model is very sluggish. It couldn't catch the quick current market changes. So the nearest neighbor method really gave us the flexibility to model focused on the independent variables related to the fast market dynamics and leave the user larger data set to model the long-term trend like a depreciation and a seasonality. The second term in the object function is the volume adjustment term. And in the center of it is elasticity. Elasticity here is defined as a percentage of price change due to the percentage of volume change. It's a different, actually, it's the reverse of the traditional elasticity definition in the economics. Because at the auctions, it's the supply drives the auction price. We use 2 years of data to estimate that, to create a time series, 2 time series. One is for the average auction price for the model, the other for the sales volume. So if the auction happens bi-weekly, there's 52 observations for this series. And we use a remark procedure to estimate this parameter. With the forecasted auction price and the elasticity, and also with the client's cost of funds and shipping metrics, we are ready to solve this objective function. Then which method we should use? This is a typical combinatorial problem with very large search space. Every day, if we try to distribute 2,000 units with among the 25 auction sites, the solution space could be as large as 25 raised to 2,000th power. We already mentioned earlier, this object function is very complex. It's nonlinear. And also, we're under various business constraints. Some constraints have to be satisfied, like the truck load of multiple of 8, and also the closing, opening certain routes because the availability of the transportation. And certain constraints are recommendation, like the minimum auction inventories. We implement it as a soft constraint, and we penalize objective function if we not satisfy that. And last but not least, the operational considerations, because ODAV runs during the night without human interventions, we need the method efficient and robust. We picked the genetically organized our solution method because of its efficiency, its easy to implementation, its flexibility to implement constraints, and also its ability to give a better solution. Here's a chart shows how that works. Every morning, 1 o'clock, ODAV goes out to client's FTP site, gets the vehicle data to be distributed for the day. We forecasted the auction price for each vehicle at each auctions, combined with shipping metrics, auction inventory, and local volume price elasticity, also combined with the client requirements. Put into this GA operator and generate daily vehicle distribution plan. By 6 o'clock, this plan sent to the client FTP site, their IT system take over and send to the shippers. ODAV run 6 days a week, all year long, except New Year Day and Christmas Day. Well, we also need a little break, right? Here's a little history. We started to build this system in August 2001. By the end, we have the first system built. At the beginning of 2002, we start to engage Chrysler Financial Services. In May 2002, we get a chance to run a pilot test. So in the pilot test, both the CF and us controlled half of their lease return volumes. It's random selected. In the 3 months pilot test, by the end of August, ODAV demonstrated average 128 net profit lift per vehicle, a total of more than $300,000 for our client. Then we get awarded by the contract. In October 2002, we add Chrysler fleet return volumes into our portfolio. It's been a very interesting journey for us. I still vividly remember at the beginning, we got numerous phone calls from the auction managers complaining why we send their good vehicles out and send some vehicles they don't want in. Actually, we spent quite a lot of effort to educate our client from the mindset, shift the mindset from just looking one auction at a time to look at the global enterprise optimization. And also we have a period of we call it controlled ODAV because our clients didn't feel comfortable about shipping for more profit. So they asked us to implement a lot of constraints. And until half a year well into the production, we really convinced our client to let ODAV do this work. It's been 5 years. ODAV grew from its infancy to a mature product. Next, Stefan will give you an example and talk about the business impact.
Thank you, Jay. So let's talk about the application here for a moment. As you heard from Jay, ODAV services have come a long way. Today, it's a combined system of auction vehicle distribution and remarketing operations support. The screen at the bottom, you see it's a web-based system today, and it shows how it delivers these shipping plans every morning. As Jay mentioned too, the system is completely integrated today with the remarketing processes of the client and the auctions. They used to generate these sheets per paper and then basically have to fax them over. It happens automatically today every night. And then we provide on a weekly and monthly basis ongoing performance measurement and reporting. And how we do this, let me show you an example here real quick of one of our captive finance clients. So in August 2007, their situation was that they had about a little bit over 16,000 vehicles in their inventory, which accounted for about 90 different combinations, make, model year combinations that had to be modeled. The shipping plan in August had almost 22,000 vehicles that we distributed to these 23 auction sites where these clients do business. And this was done on an average cost per vehicle of $83. The profit lift that we were able to generate for our client in that month was $303 per vehicle, or $6.6 million in total, and that's not a bad amount to have in a single month. So here's a very abbreviated example of what this distribution looks like. On the left side, you basically see the 23 auction sites that the client uses. In the middle, the volume. On the right, the shipping cost. And I just highlighted for you a couple locations here, Denver and Kansas City, because you can actually, if you look at this, relatively high shipping costs compared to the average, you can actually see some of that northeast dynamic that we talked about earlier, and the fact that we had to take quite a lot of vehicles out of the northeast and ship them to some more central locations. So how do we measure the results? And this is the example here for August 2007. It starts with the price lift that comes from the price difference between the auction where the vehicle originated and where it was shipped from. We then have to subtract the cost for the shipping, some of the additional asset carrying costs that has to do with the depreciation, and then some additional administrative cost that has incurred as these vehicles hit these new locations. And then we add back in what's called here this oversupply correction, which is now the effect of the local supply and demand elasticity. So by taking these vehicles out of one auction, the prices there go up. And this effect was here $238, and then gets us to the total overall net profit lift here of $303 per vehicle. We provide this kind of measurement and performance reporting today on a monthly basis to our clients for all their vehicles. Okay, so let's conclude your last section with the overall business impact that we have generated.
On average, when we are looking at what's the economic benefit, in addition to cycle times, we also see the cost avoidance. We see the avoidance of our staff costs, where we can take them out of an analysis point and put them into an operational function. We also see a reduction in our overall transportation costs. Since we're not sending vehicles to an auction location and then realizing that maybe we sent it to the wrong place, so then we ship it again. That has reduced our transportation costs pretty dramatically. Since we've implemented ODAV over the last several years, we've seen almost a $70 per unit transportation cost reduction. On average, we can experience a $220 per unit net economic gain from ODAV.
Of course, that was Pete Grady again, our client from Chrysler Fleet Remarketing. We wanted to give him first word on this section. Now, just to summarize, as you heard from him, he talked about briefly of some of these efficiencies. I just want to add a couple. He already mentioned the savings and the efficiencies from the operational side because of staff now being able to deal with tactical and strategic issues rather than having to do the number crunching, the improved financial results due to the net profit lift in residuals, and he also talked briefly about the reduction in operating cost. A couple of benefits we want to add here is an increased transparency that our clients have experienced, because now everybody is using the same information. So there is one shipping plan, there is one performance tracking report, there's one list of vehicles, there's one metric, and not everybody in the field or at the management sitting there and looking at different reports and measuring the effectiveness differently. And then lastly, which we've even seen with some of the more mature client relationships, it almost transforms the business from a more reactive into a more proactive mode, where you can now actually make conscious decisions. What is it that in a future period you want to achieve? You know, is it more residual, for example, value, or is it just the proceeds that you want to get? In the long term, we have seen continuous improvements of residual values from our clients. We have seen a reduction in price volatility due to better and more stable price forecasting, and also the ability to react faster to market changes. Because, of course, the market, whether it's the new vehicle market or the used vehicle market, is going to throw a few curveballs, and this system allows to just basically catch up faster with those dynamics. Now, is the system transferable? Do we think it's generalizable? Absolutely. We think there are quite a few opportunities for transportability. In the automotive industry themselves, we're talking to a couple of rental companies, for example, right now. We believe you could take it to other regions as long as there is auction history available. And of course, other industries that deal with similar supply and demand problems and basically used equipment that needs to be resold. So just to summarize real quick, I believe we've shown quite a good track record here and a return on investment. In our example for last year, we've generated an overall profit lift of $60 million. We've priced and developed shipping plans since 2002 for $1.8 million. As we heard from Jay, our clients, we've gotten our clients to trust the system, and we have become a trusted advisor for our client. And we've also been able to achieve a remarkable client satisfaction. J.D. Power surveys every year internally our clients for these solutions, and we have gotten the perfect 10 for the last couple of years from our clients. And last but not least, we've also generated with ODAV a steady and profitable source of revenue for J.D. Power itself. With that, thank you very much to everybody, even the people that couldn't be here today, who helped us to get to this point today. Again, it's a huge honor for us. And thank you also to our clients, because to be honest, without their patience and partnership, we wouldn't be here today. That's why we thought we'd give them the last word, and we hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you.
Another key component of the ODAV product that we get from J.D. Power is really the relationship that we have with J.D. Power. We rely on the folks from J.D. Power to be strategic partners for us. So as we have a particular problem in our business, and it has any relationship to residuals, it has any relationship to the distribution of our fleet vehicles, we will, we'll tap into the expertise of Stefan and Jay and their staff, and then they'll come in and try to help us work through the solutions that are available to us. And instead of working directly from our gut, which has always been our propensity to do, what J.D. Power provides us with the ODAV tool is a more data-driven decision support. We're able to come up with scenarios, and then off of that, ODAV can provide us a simulation of what results we can expect off of those particular scenarios.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Thank you very much, Joe. Now, Peter Danaher and Manfred Kraft are going to investigate a couple of the issues that they found with the presentation.
First of all, thank you very much for that interesting presentation. I really enjoyed that. I just have, start off with a slightly technical question. I hope you don't mind that. But one thing I did notice from reading your paper is that the price volume elasticity, which you discussed in your presentation, is reported in your paper at negative 0.06, which is quite small, which indicates reasonably low sensitivity to the volume of cars that are available. And I wondered, given this low sensitivity, what features of the ODAV system best explain the extremely high gain in profits?
The definition we have is reverse of a traditional elasticity definition in the economics, because at auctions it's a supply drive the demand. Then you reverse it, it seems very high. Actually, we give example. Suppose we have a Grand Cherokee four-wheel drive right now, sell roughly about $15,000 right now. So if at the auction you offer 20, right now it's this price. If you double the price, double the volume, 40, and with the 0.06 elasticity, basically you'll get a price deduct by $900. So we run this number with the various auction managers and talk to them, said, okay, this is a number, that's what we see from the data. Do you believe it or not? And we get consent for all of them. Said, okay, yeah, if you double the sales is easily, we get $1,000 deductions on the auction side.
Well, the market for new cars and the market for used cars obviously is related. There's an interdependency here. And I wonder to which degree your model is able actually to cover this kind of interdependency. Could you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah. I'll take that one. You're absolutely correct. There's a huge interdependency, and we're actually doing a lot of research on that too. What we found specifically for the auction distribution is that it gets addressed indirectly, actually, somewhat through the sales history. And what we found is that because the lag time is actually between the effect that you have on a new vehicle side and the used vehicle side, that it pretty well gets captured through the sales history, and that it wouldn't improve the accuracy of the prediction that much just because of that difference in the time lag.
Yeah, I want to add in one more thing for them is for the comments Stefan has is it's very hard to catch it because of the reporting delay. When we get the sale, new car sale incentives, we have internal reporting. It's 2 weeks. We have a delay of 2 weeks. So that's why we use the nearest neighbor, try to filter out the sales history to get a quick response on this market. And we have a daily data feed from our client to catch the market dynamics. And then we use the nearest neighbor to filter out the recent sales, and then run the linear regression, try to catch that.
Okay, another question for you here is, you're in a sort of classic supply and demand situation, but your forecast models seem to focus mostly on, in fact, only on demand. And I wondered if you had any sense of what the alternative findings might have been if you had a simultaneous system that had supply and demand in your forecast model.
Okay, I'll take this one. Again, it's a nearest neighbor method. We talk about it again. It's for us right now. We focus more on the dynamics of the market. So because we have another clip show the auctions. It's so crazy at an auction, so we have to have a way to capture it. So in that way, if we run the long history with the sales volumes, the model is very sluggish. So we find a way to do that is use nearest neighbor to concentrate on the various changing rapidly related independent variables, and then run the elasticity with the multiple years of data, catch the trend, and then feed into the optimizer to consider in that way.
have a kind of surprise question for you. Just imagine a kind of shock would happen, such as the Hurricane Katrina. Would you be able to integrate that into your modeling approach rather soon, or would it be a big challenge?
Well, I mean, the shock would, and Jay, you can talk about it from a methodology. I mean, the shock would obviously show up very quickly in the auction sales history. As for example, the prices would go down, you have more damaged vehicles or bad condition. I mean, we wouldn't be able to predict the shock, but we would immediately catch that in the system, and the overall distribution would basically adjust to that. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, adding one story, actually it's a real story. We don't have auctions. Our client doesn't have auctions at the Katrina affected area, but they do have auctions in Texas. So we see the healthy sales pickup in the Texas because all the population moving in, because all the insurance money, so they start to buy the used vehicles. Our system really pick up that and then send more vehicles over there. We get a pretty good returns on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your
Thank
presentation.
you.